Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Chase. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Right now I'm going to film an episode of The Daily Creative. If you're not sure what that is, that's where I answer your questions. It's a call-in show about creativity, entrepreneurship, be able to make a living in life doing what you love. I hope it's familiar to you. I'm going to answer 2 questions today in the call-in show. And if, by the way, if you want to have your question on the show, dial 802-962-4357. I'm going to do 2 questions today. First one right now coming in from Winston.
Hey, Chase. Ever since my friend Jose told me about you, I've been watching your content and I'm a huge fan. So thanks for doing what you do. So my question is, what do you suggest someone with severe depression do to pursue their goals when motivation and energy aren't always there? I know you're not a therapist, but I just want to hear what you think, because I know you talk a lot about the importance of being driven and passionate on a day-to-day scale.
Winston, all right, man. Thank you very much for calling in. And when you said your friend Jose, I'm wondering if that's your friend Jose Rosado, who is another creative in this community. He started a site, I think it's Creatives Against Depression. It's a blog, so I'm glad Jose has referred you to me. A couple things. This is super, super, super serious, and I appreciate you reaching out, and the fact that you struggle and are willing to share that with this community, it means a lot. Also, it's really important to know that I'm not a doctor, and I believe it's very important for the creatives who are listening to this right now and the entrepreneurs who are going through hard times. There are 2 different sides of a similar coin. The coin might be your emotional state, and one is actual clinical depression, which is brain chemistry related. It needs professional treatment from a doctor. And then the other one is being bummed out and having a really rough go and a bunch of stuff happens and you're psychologically in a bad place. And I understand that it's difficult to understand the difference. So that's why I think it's good to see a doctor. I think you should be doing as many of the things that you can do with the bummed out part of it, regardless of where you fall on the spectrum, because I don't think those ever hurt. I think they're very positive thinking, and self-care and all that stuff is critical. But if you do have some brain chemistry stuff going on, then you would want to see a professional. I'm not a professional. I have dealt with anxiety. I have dealt with depression. They were for reasonably compartmentalized times, but I want you to know that professionally and personally, I understand what you're going through, and I'm sorry, but we're going to fix it. We're going to do the best we can here. See a doctor if you're on that one side of the coin. If you're on the other, or both, listen to this advice. So, brain chemistry aside, self-care is one of the things that I feel like creatives in general, we do a bad job of. And it's also important to lay the groundwork that there's so many amazing artists who have died in their 20s, taken their own lives. I mean, how many in the last year or 2 alone, let alone the Jim Morrisons and the other, the Kurt Cobains, and God forbid those are terrible outcomes. But we do a bad job of self-care. There's a narrative in our culture that in order to be creative, you need to be a tortured soul, and it's fundamentally not true. I think the best creatives, and what I would love to encourage in our community, is that we take good care of ourselves so we can make great art on and on and on ongoing. And it's not something that's a temporary state for someone who's in trouble. So if we can do our part to change that narrative with videos like this where we're talking open and frank about it, I think is a huge step in the right direction. Part of self-care, I think there's 2 sides to that element. One is the physical and one is the emotional. Physically, I can't state enough that your body and mind are completely connected, and the physical sense of moving your body, of activity, and I think Tony Robbins does a really good job of talking about this stuff, and he's got a lot of stuff online. You can check him out. Moving your body actually is part of what can change your biochemistry, not necessarily a certain subset of chemicals, but generally speaking, moving your body is very good for everybody, and indeed someone who's suffering with that you're bummed out. So to me, the physical, are you eating well? Are you sleeping enough? That's so critical. It's so critical. Are you taking care of are you eating right? These are just fundamentals that have, the narrative in our culture is all screwed up around those things. And so I advocate something very simple. That's why I track 10 habits, that I eat paleo, that I get 8 hours in bed, not necessarily always sleep, but 8 hours in bed. These are personal habits that I track. I would encourage you to listen to some of the videos I've done about about my morning routine. It's all around this physical well-being, like exercise and taking care of yourself in the physical sense. And there's an emotional part of my daily routine that I would prescribe as well, and that has to do with a gratitude practice. Totally changed my point of view when I started practicing gratitude on a regular basis, as has meditation. I advocate transcendental meditation, but my point is not trying to be prescriptive in this video. You can go type in my name in meditation, my name in visualization, my name plus gratitude, and these videos will come up. The most important, I think, overarching part of if you're in the bummed out category and things are tough, and it's important also for me to make the distinction that I don't do this just when things are tough. I do this all the time, and it prevents any sort of a real deep lull in my personal, mental, emotional, physical state. So when you look at the physical things that you can do, from eating good and moving your body to the emotional things that you can do, I try and package those in the morning and the evening. These to me are not like nice to haves, they're non-negotiable must haves. These are as important to me or more important than brushing my teeth. That's how critical this is. And it's very clear to me that as a culture we have an issue with this. Specifically anxiety. I think meditating probably removed 50% of my anxiety, as did dramatically limiting my caffeine intake. I think this is an important thing for us to acknowledge as a culture, that that too much caffeine, I call it worry juice, when you have more than a cup. It goes from coffee to worry juice. And so these are just a couple of topical, simple things that I feel like we should be talking about as a culture, and specifically here in the creative community, because we are disproportionately likely to suffer from some of these ailments. You can tell from my point of view that all of these things, taking care of ourselves, is massively important. I'm going to circle back now and say, just remember that this doesn't create, that this isn't the whole picture, and there is a very clinical side that I want you to know, like where you fall on the spectrum. You should be doing all of these things. If you're a creative who cares about yourself, you should be doing everything you can to make the changes in your life that are the side that I'm advocating for right here. Just please take me up on these things. And I guess it was Weston Winston. Thank you so much for sharing that you struggle with this. Remember, I'm not a doctor, but dear God, do these things. And if you want to reach out to me, if you're in trouble, I'm happy to steer you to my videos and or to some professional help. There are hotlines that if you just typed in and you really need help, just type in hotline in your neighborhood, and I'm sure you can find something. So super glad for taking this question. It's an important one. And shout out to Jose for referring you to me. Jose's site, I think it's Creatives Against Depression. Is that right, Nasa?
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. Awesome. So I guess the last thing before I shift into the next question is, you're not alone. Like, this is I think anxiety is at epidemic proportions with social and all the information in the world that's ready at our fingertips. In some ways it's made us, it's certainly made culture move faster, but along with that has been anxiety. Our neurological systems aren't wired for all that input, I don't think. We're gonna have to evolve quickly, and part of this evolution is awareness and being able to deal with it. So, appreciate you for bringing it up, and I'm gonna stop talking about it now because I could talk about it forever. Nice job, man. Thank you for being on the show. All right, I'm gonna shift gears. Maybe you can put a little crack noise in there, because nothing cracked. I just did the motion and nothing happened. I got another question queued up here. This one is, I'm just gonna let this one speak for itself. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
Hi Chase, my name is Andrew Aiden. I live in Monaco.
Nice.
And I've been a digital artist for many years. Now, since I'm kind of feeling depressed, and I know you've been there,
Yep.
just wondering what can be helpful except for what doctors are recommending us.
Sure.
How to get back to be motivated and do the stuff normally I love to, and just would love to hear
Yep.
what kind of things helped you out.
Sure. Thanks a lot for calling in. I didn't know we were going to have 2 questions about depression, so I'm just going to refer you back to my earlier answer. But when I saw it was going there, I wanted the world to hear another creative calling in. And I've just been sort of briefed here off the side from my team that we have a lot of questions about depression. So rather than me replaying the script that I just did for you in particular, I want this to be sort of a universal, understood, like a point of view. I do not have all the answers. I have struggled. Maybe I'll just use a second here to give you a little bit of context. One, I was struck with a virus basically that made me lose my balance, and I went from like being a normal, really high functioning Olympic development athlete to I could barely walk for weeks and weeks and weeks and months, and over a period of months I couldn't drive for several months, and it was like I had a 15 beer buzz. And that sounds funny until you actually have it, and it's completely debilitating. And on the backside of that, I became clinically depressed. I sought both paths that I talked about in the original answer when I was answering Winston's question. And I did all of the self-care that I could, which is taking care of my physical body, taking care of my emotional body, doing work, seeing a therapist. And then on the physical side, I did temporarily go on some medication. The medication didn't do me well, but it was really the starting of that, the realizing power of the other side of that equation, and I was able to get myself back on track. But unfortunately, it was a reasonably short period of time versus, say, people who are manic or who have really severe depression. That, again, is the biochemical stuff. So that's a little bit about me, and it's also really important to know that, again, the reason we're playing this, and this is the episode, apparently, about creatives and depression, that you're not alone. I've shared some of my stories here. There are other folks like Tim Ferriss. You should check out his TED Talk, which he just gave this most recent TED Talk up at Vancouver. And he speaks specifically about, I think, being manic, and that he swung. I think he's had 50 episodes of severe depression, and you should listen to that TED Talk. And he, through, I think, a lot of the softer skills, taking care of themselves and seeing some therapists and some physicians, was able to mitigate his. But I don't remember his actual outcome, other than it worked out for him, and now he's in a really good spot. But you should listen to those folks, because you should listen to those stories from me and Tim, and there are so many others. Lewis Howes has a great example of being depressed, and he was, I don't know if he was clinical, but more in the very, very bummed out. He just botched a career in professional sports and was living on a sister's couch with a broken arm, I think, or broken shoulder. The more that we talk about this stuff and let culturally become aware that it's not just you alone in your room right now or in your basement or whatever dealing with this, that it's a cultural issue and that there is help available for you, I think that's a key to getting us to a better place. In many cases, reflecting back on these tough times, that does a couple of other things on the positive side. It creates urgency for when you become healthy to tell your story, and your story, not just your story about depression, but to make art. As creators, we have the ability to tell a story that will resonate with a lot of people through words and photos and videos and motion and just through art in general. It's a great way to reflect culturally on the challenges that you've had, and that helps other people. I think it creates empathy, awareness. All this stuff is super good. So if you can get healthy, don't be afraid to tell your story, and I think that's it. I'm going to wrap up this episode. Maybe, can we put a helpline down here or something, Nasa? She's saying, yeah, we'll do that for anyone who is suffering. And go check out some of my other videos about my morning routine in particular. That is something I protect with basically all my might, and it's sort of the staying healthy part, the mental, emotional, physical stuff that will, I think, keep you in the best place possible. So you should find out what works for you, but that's you'll be able to find out some of the things that work for me. All right, that wraps an episode of The Creative. Love you guys. Thanks for calling in. This is the show where I answer your questions. 802-962-4357. Sharing this stuff is really, really helpful. Obviously, sometimes we deal with like how to get more clients, and other times with harder stuff like this. But you sharing it helps the tide rise across our creative community. Thank you for being a part of it. I love this community. I love your questions, and I hope you find some value in my answers. So I'm gonna keep doing it. Thank you very much. Until next time, au revoir. Braidwave.